of South Florida have seen around a foot of rainfall, with local areas seeing around 2 feet. Even as the tropical moisture fueling the storms slowly starts to shift out of the area, rain is expected to continue over the weekend, although to a lesser extent. Still, given the already saturated ground and lingering high water, even light to moderate showers and thunderstorms could cause additional flooding and prevent floodwaters from receding. I'm Reed Binion reporting.
And take a look. This is the scene in South Florida yesterday evening as the rainy weather slowly improved. An amazing video of a double rainbow as the sun set. This was taken just outside of Fort Lauderdale. And further up the coast, cleanup is continuing following Wednesday's tornado. It touched down near West Palm Beach. Winds topped 90 miles an hour as the twister damaged buildings. And it also uprooted trees. West Palm Beach photographer Max Shepman spoke to business owners as they were picking up after the storm.
When that wind goes sideways, everything tears up.
This is the first true F1 tornado that I'm aware of in the 49 years of living here in Hobe Sound, and it decided to just take a trip right down Bridge Road to the ocean.
That was a nursery. Total devastation.
This was not just a small little water spout. This was the real deal.
When I looked out the back window, I could see the trees just bending all the way over. It was awful.
To see a railroad crossing signal light get pulled up out of its foundation and thrown about 50 foot away, that's pretty intense.
I would have even almost thought it was worse. It was just, we've got debris everywhere.
I feel blessed. I feel blessed beyond measure. But we'll put it all back together, everybody will, and we'll move on.
I don't want anybody else to go through it. If something else, I don't want to do it again.
The National Hurricane Center is still monitoring 2 disturbances. The one off of the South Carolina coast has a 20% chance of developing into a named storm. A second disturbance close to Mexico has a 40% chance to develop over the next week. And one of the reasons this year's hurricane season is expected to be so active is the return of La Nina. The El Nino climate pattern, marked by warmer than average ocean temperatures in the Pacific, is now over. It's been here since last summer. Right now, we are in a neutral phase, and by the end of this summer, La Nina should be in place. Historically, that has meant very hot summers in the United States. And turning to today's severe weather risks, we are watching 2 separate regions of the country. In the plains, the greatest threat includes portions of the Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas area. Here in the Northeast, the risk stretches from Maryland to Maine. Large hail and damaging wind gusts are possible. Sunday is Father's Day, so what is on tap for weather this weekend and the week ahead? Meteorologist Kit Alexander says it involves heat for the largest part of the country.
As many of you already know, the weather on a global scale plays a major role in what you may be seeing out your front door. Over the past 2 weeks, the United States has experienced everything from tornadoes, extreme heat, to massive amounts of rain like in southern Florida. But what are some of the current weather patterns that will influence what we'll be seeing in the coming days? Well, as we go into next weekend and next week, a blocking ridge of high pressure that has been over the southern plains will be shifting east. This area of high pressure will be responsible for really the first major heat wave of the year in much of the eastern parts of the United States. And of course, in southern Florida, they've been dealing with the tropical Invest 90L, and this tropical disturbance has brought heavy amounts of rain and flooding to southern Florida. This will continue to move slowly northeast offshore in the Atlantic, but it's something we'll be monitoring in the coming days. For much of the eastern United States, long-term models and ensembles are suggesting this dome of high pressure will continue to build, leading to record heat for some, and certainly a massive change from what we've seen in May and also in June.
And of course, when you think of summer, you probably think of the season that runs from mid-June to mid-September. But there are actually 3 different kinds of summers. Here's meteorologist Brandon Stover to explain.
Well, did you know that there are 3 types of summer? We are in 2 of those right now. The first is called solar summer. These are the months with the strongest sun rays of the year. May, June, and July, also the longest days of the year. The second is called meteorological summer. These are the warmest months of the year, which include June, July, and August. Grouping these 3 months also makes it easier for keeping climate stats by season. And finally, the summer that all of us know is astronomical summer. This is the time in which the most direct rays of the sun can be found in the northern hemisphere, which begins over the Tropic of Cancer in late June before slowly retreating to the equator late in September. And this year we have a special summer solstice. It occurs next Thursday, June 20th. It will officially occur late in the afternoon, will be the earliest one since 1796. This also marks the longest day of the year.
And a rather unusual whirlwind or dust devil formed in a farmer's hayfield this weekend. Meteorologist Dave Dierks is explaining how this wind phenomenon formed.
Check out this awesome video of a pretty strong whirlwind that developed in a hayfield in Ashe County, North Carolina, also called dust devils. They're not terribly common across the southern Appalachians, but these whirling winds kind of look like a small tornado and usually develop on sunnier and warmer days. As the warmer air encounters cooler air above the surface, a local area of rapidly rising air results. And under favorable conditions, the rising air rotates, creating a circulation that picks up dust and leaves, and in this case, hay. The whirlwind is sustained by the warm air being drawn up from the surface, and the instability associated with this process is usually short-lived and only rarely results in notable wind damage. Pretty wild.
And on this Father's Day weekend, we're going to check the weather at cities hosting major sporting events. Golf's U.S. Open is taking place at Pinehurst, about an hour away from Fayetteville, North Carolina. It is going to be hot all weekend with temperatures in the 90s. The Boston Celtics can clinch the NBA title tonight with a win on the road over the Mavericks, but it's also going to be hot in Dallas today with bright sun and a high temperature of 96. Up in Edmonton, Canada, the Florida Panthers can clinch the Stanley Cup with a win tomorrow night over the Oilers. It's a much different weather story there, but today will be rainy. The sun comes out tomorrow, highs both days in the 60s. Finally, we turn to Omaha, Nebraska, where the College Baseball World Series is starting today. Today will be mostly sunny with a high near 90, and there is a threat of rain tomorrow. Some news now for stargazers. NASA says astronomers are expecting what will look like a new star to appear between now and September. The expected brightening event is known as a nova. A nova refers to the sudden, brief explosion from a collapsed star. Once the nova peaks in brightness, it will be as if a new star has appeared. Coming up on the National Weather Desk, we're going to look at how officials in California are preparing for the upcoming wildfire season.
I'm meteorologist Emily Santa, and let's take a look at the temperatures for the Northeast for today. Mostly 70s into New England, and then once you exit New England, we're looking at temperatures in the 80s, 84 down in New York, 80 over in Atlantic City. We are watching a cold front to move through for portions of New England, leading to some strong to severe thunderstorms around the afternoon. Temperatures are going to be in the 70s. We are looking at some storms down in Connecticut, even near New York City. Other than that, it'll wrap up just after midnight.
I'm meteorologist Jasmine Lomax with a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. As we head into the day, we'll have a cold front sweep across the region, and that will result in the chance for rain and storms. There could even be some strong storms at times. The rain will continue into the night, but a lot of that clears right in time for Saturday morning. As we head into the afternoon, high temperatures will be warm ahead of the cold front, reaching the 80s and 90s. Then as we head into the night, temperatures will drop to the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. We're looking at 95 Atlanta, 91 in Charleston, 93 Pensacola, Tampa about 94 degrees, Tupelo looking at about 95 or 96 degrees. So we're seeing hot temperatures across the area. High pressure pretty much in control over the southeast. Plenty of sunshine, looking pretty good from Memphis, Nashville over towards Atlanta. Few pop-up showers around the parts of Virginia, but still some lingering showers over the south portions of Florida where they've seen heavy amounts of rainfall as we've gone through the last several days.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
California has seen very active wildfire seasons in the last 2 years, and this year things seem more like they are off to a slow start. So what does that mean for the rest of the season? Meteorologist Chris Kuiper is looking into what we can expect.
As the days get longer and our temperatures get hotter, many of us look forward to the fun times of summer, which can include warm evenings, pool parties, and family barbecues. It also means fire season is ready to begin. So what kind of fire season can we expect this year? A relatively quiet season like last year or the year before with a low number of acres burned across the state and no major fires? Or a devastating fire season like we had in 2021 or the year before that, which included the terrible Creek Fire and California's two largest fires ever, the August Complex and the Dixie Fire, both of which burned around 1 million acres each. While no one can say for sure, it does look like we'll see a quiet start to our fire season. First off, while this past rain season wasn't nearly as wet as our record-breaking season 2 years ago was, it still wasn't that bad. Most of the state had about average rainfall, which, combined with the incredibly wet season we had 2 years ago, means that the entire state of California is currently drought-free. The forests of the Sierra Nevada have been well watered recently, so the trees and brush, which can fuel large fires, are relatively moist right now. Also, last year's El Nino conditions in the Pacific have now shifted to La Nina. That often means fewer hurricanes in the Pacific near Mexico, which leads to fewer summer thunderstorms for us. Lightning from thunderstorms is what sparked 4 of the 7 largest fires in California's history. And if it's ever determined that lightning is what caused the Creek Fire, make that 5 of the 7 largest fires in California's history. Now, all of that doesn't mean we won't see fires later on this year. Large fires will always be possible in California in the summer and fall months. But going into fire season with somewhat moist fuels and the potential for fewer lightning strikes this summer is definitely good news.
Wildfires can sometimes get so large that they create their own weather patterns. Meteorologist Mitchell Coombs explains.
A byproduct of combustion is water, and as heat rises, it can release that water into the atmosphere. This water then can combine with the smoke and ash in the air to condense and create clouds. If the updrafts are strong enough, those clouds can then become large thunderstorms capable of producing their own lightning. With the dry fuels already in place, each one of those lightning strikes could create spot fires further downwind. In the most extreme cases of fire behavior, wildfires can produce fire whirls or fire tornadoes. The Fire Science Lab is able to create smaller versions of these phenomena to study their development and impacts. The research being conducted at the Fire Science Lab is integral into learning why fires behave the way they do. With greater understanding, the goal is to keep firefighters safe while at the same time decreasing the threats to life and property. Keep you and your family informed this fire season to changing fire weather conditions.
And of course, temperatures are going to be soaring in Ohio. Columbus meteorologist Sarah Converse is saying that power companies are ready and has some tips on how to keep a leash on your power bill when that heat spikes.
Our first stretch of 90-degree-plus days is on the way, which means AC units will be working overtime to keep you cool. Losing power during the summer can be a nuisance and even dangerous. AEP Ohio's operations manager, Matt Bennett, says they are prepared to tackle any outages this summer.
There's never a convenient time to be without power, regardless of temperature. But we also understand that, people want their AC, and our crews take immense amount of pride in restoring power.
With AC units constantly running, you may notice a higher electric bill. Matt Bennett shares some helpful tips to conserve energy.
Raising your thermostat a couple of degrees can make a big difference. We recommend 78, but we really want you to make that choice, what's best for you and your family. And then some other tips, the side of your house that the sun's coming in. Closing your blinds and your curtains will help keep the house cooler.
Well, the warm season is here, which means more time outdoors, from hiking to spending time at lakes and beaches. The UV index can help you know how much time it might take before the sun burns your skin. Meteorologist Violet Skybrior explains how these numbers are calculated and the best protection to use.
The UV index ranges on a scale from 1 up to 11, and it tells you the burn time that it takes, depending on a few factors. The lowest range takes about 60 minutes for burn time. The highest as low as 10 minutes when the UV index is extreme. You definitely want sunscreen no matter what the UV index is, but when it gets to that very high to extreme, you want to limit your time out in the sun during the hottest part of the day, the midday to early afternoon hours. So how are these numbers calculated? We calculate the UV index based on a few things. The sun angle, which is the highest in the sky when summer begins. The ozone layer, if there's thin spots, that means a higher UV index. And the cloud cover. If we have thick clouds, that means a lower UV index. If you're at a higher elevation, that means a higher UV index, and the time of day as well. The UV index peaks during the middle of the day. And it also peaks when summer begins, which is this upcoming Thursday, June 20th at 4:50 p.m. So as far as sunscreen goes, here's some facts and tips to help you stay safe. Use at least SPF 30+. That blocks about 97% of the sun's rays. Make sure it's broad spectrum, UVA and UVB. Most sunscreens last 1 to 2 hours, so make sure to reapply and use waterproof as well. And use mineral versus chemical. That's usually better for your body and the environment. Look for zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Avoid oxybenzone because that can disrupt your hormones. And keep in mind, sunscreens expire after 3 years, so make sure to go through yours and throw out any old ones.
Well, there is a term in meteorology called relative humidity, and it is often used pretty often. It's to help you understand exactly what it means. And we're going to turn to meteorologist Les Still.
I often get asked, well, why do you call it relative humidity? Well, part of it is because it's relative as to when you're actually measuring it. When you look at it, it's basically an equation of the actual temperature divided by the dew point temperature. And when you look for us in the early morning hours here, where the actual temperature and the dew point temperature are close to each other, the mathematical equation means that's higher percent of relative humidity. Now, usually dew points don't fluctuate all that much through the daytime hours, but those temperatures, the actual temperatures, can accelerate quickly with the dry air in place. And notice when you do that mathematical equation how the percent of relative humidity drops during the daytime hours for us here. And then as the atmosphere cools down, again, dew points don't change all that much during the overnight hours here. You start seeing the relative humidity tick back up. This is kind of a simplification of this here. There's some other concepts and mathematical equations in science to talk about to get the actual equation for this here. But practical purposes, this is what we're talking about when we talk about relative humidity.
And time now for a short break, but first let's take flight over beautiful Baltimore City, Maryland.
Well, a very good Friday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Let's take a look at your next weather makers here. Got some storms across the plains there in Nebraska, northern Kansas today, and also the Ohio Valley. The storms slowly move their way across the plains as we head into your Saturday. And then by Sunday, that kind of shifts a little bit more towards eastern Iowa into Wisconsin and the northern Great Lakes. But it's going to be getting hot. Look at all those 90s that we've got on the way, especially across the southern part of the Midwest for your weekend.
Good Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast today across the region, starting off with warm temperatures, hot afternoon with lots of sunshine, really not much of a rain chance Friday. Head into your weekend, Father's Day weekend, and Saturday, very hot day. 90s, a little bit of humidity as well, slight rain chance in Arkansas near the Gulf Coast. And of course, keeping an eye then on Father's Day Sunday to next week for tropical development. That's our next weather maker for the region. 6 to 10 day outlook does have above normal rainfall across the region.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. The heat is on. It feels like summer is already officially here. It has now for over a week in Southern California and Arizona, where once again we're talking about triple-digit heat there and an excessive heat warning in place. 87 out of Boise, which is a cool down. The Pacific Northwest continuing to cool down as well. Next weather maker there through Seattle and Portland, a little front which will bring some showers in later today. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Invasive species of plants and animals can spread quickly. Meteorologist Grayson Frund explains how.
Invasive species are plants and animals that are not native to an area, which threaten the native species due to outcompeting resources.
They grow faster, they reproduce faster, they choke out vital resources maybe. They're just better at growing. And the biggest thing is that they don't really have a predator. They don't really have a lot of things that can slow them down in this environment.
The emerald ash borer, woodpeckers, and garlic mustard are just a few examples found here in Iowa. The problem is you can easily and unintentionally spread them to new places by vehicles and watercrafts, through pets, and even by the seeds sticking to the bottom of your shoes. But there are simple steps you can take to prevent the spread by inspecting and cleaning your belongings to make sure you aren't bringing any materials with you, and by staying aware and learning about them.
We as humans do transport a lot of invasive species back and forth.
And of course, we would love to share your weather images and videos on the air. You can find us on all your favorite social media platforms, including Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. Just search the National Weather Desk. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I'm Lindsay Mastis. Make it a great Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. Happy Father's Day to those of you celebrating. And of course, we'll see you right back here on Monday.